The year 2020 has been very eventful. It began with the assassination of a senior military figure of a sovereign nation, and from that point, like a good action movie, 2020 never quite let up. From a pandemic, global recession, record-breaking bushfires on 2 continents, locust infestation, and many more, 2020 changed the world in ways that will be with us for years to come. At the end of every year, SBM makes projections of what we think will take place in Nigeria during the coming year. While the prophecy business is not an exact science, our record thus far has been good. Until 2019, that is, where our record reads. Here are our projections for 2021. Economy. The financial struggles of the Nigerian government will continue. Poor revenue due to a slow global economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic, which will keep oil prices low. High cost of debt servicing will eat away at what revenues come in, and non-oil revenue will be nowhere near enough. The low revenue will force Nigeria to borrow more from concessional and multilateral lenders such as the World Bank and the IMF, as commercial lenders will not be willing to lend or will only lend at high interest rates. World Bank and IMF lending will come with conditions demanding reforms which are already happening, albeit at a very slow pace. Harmonizing exchange rates, which will devalue or float the naira, full removal of subsidy on petrol, allowing electricity tariffs to rise, etc. There will continue to be some opposition to market-oriented policies from President Buhari, who will continue to show his preference for a status economy. However, the financial constraints will force his hand in that direction. But the government will drag its feet on these reforms in the hopes of a rebound in the price of oil. The desperation to drive investments into the country and unlock growth in the oil sector, as well as current financial struggles, will force out the political will needed for the PIB to be passed, likely in the second half of the year. So far, there has been no visible opposition to the draft from the industry, trade unions, or any organized groups. Combined with the fact that the leadership of the National Assembly is allied with the executive, especially the Senate, this signals a good omen for the bill being passed, breaking a 13-year deadlock. Despite flirting with bankruptcy, it is unlikely that the FG will trim its costs, especially around its wage bill, by implementing the Oresanya report, even in part. There does not seem to be any political will for this, which is also likely to be unpopular too. Nigeria should return to positive growth by Q4 2021, thus exiting the recession. This is likely to be driven by slightly higher oil prices as well as a reopening of borders, which will reverse the decline of the trade sector, one of the largest employers of labor in the country. Productivity will continue to decline as the government and private sector lack the financial muscle to launch the economy back to the fast lane of growth. With the adoption of online work, there is little incentive for companies to hire. Rather, many contract staff will be laid off and governments will recruit less employees. What we are likely to experience in 2021 is jobless growth. The CBN's interventionist stance will accelerate in 2021 as the presidency and finance minister have ceded their fiscal policy responsibilities to the CBN. The CBN may try new tricks, including cutting MPR further or increasing CRR and LDR. It will also ramp up extra monetary interventions and expand its regulatory oversight over banking and other sectors closely tied to finance. Regardless, the outcome will be sluggish and painful economic growth. Oil prices should settle around $45 per barrel as COVID-19 vaccination gains momentum and economic activities and travel pick up. However, Nigeria's forex crisis will remain through 2021 due to difficulties in generating revenue. We expect slight devaluation of the naira in 2021 as the CBN will face renewed pressure to fund forex requests as economic activities and travel pick up. In addition, low revenues will cause reviewed pressure from the various tiers of government to call for devaluation so they can meet budget expenditure requirements. There will be a managed float of the naira at some point in the first half of 2021. Inflation will continue to increase on the back of food inflation. The government has threatened to ban importation of fish and other goods, so the likelihood of opening the borders is dim. Local food production will continue to be hindered due to insecurity, and with more mouths to feed, there can be no other outcome. We do not believe that the borders will be opened the 1st of January 2021. However, Nigeria will come under pressure from the IMF and World Bank to reopen them as part of the conditions for loans and will cave at some point in 2021. Security. As 2021 goes on, the problem of ungoverned spaces in Nigeria will become more pronounced in urban centers, and non-state actors will take advantage of these gaps to entrench themselves deeper in society. Insecurity will continue to remain a daunting challenge, with more attacks in urban areas across the country as people looking to escape attacks in villages and towns crowd the urban environment for security. In the north central and northwest, more clashes between bandits, farmers and herders and local communities should be expected. The stalemate between the Nigerian military and Boko Haram would continue, but more states will be brought into the conflict, with terrorists looking to expand into the north central. The military will be fighting on several fronts: the northeast, with Gombe seeing more attacks, and the north central, especially states like Nasarawa and Niger. Military activity will become more pronounced in Niger State in 2021. In the southeast and south-south, the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, will become more belligerent, and as the economic effects of high inflation, lower wages, and joblessness bite deeper, IPOB will find more support in both regions. Conversations around police reforms will continue in 2021. Operation Amotekun did not do much this year despite the fanfare which greeted its inauguration. In the coming year, however, mounting security challenges would force states to turn increasingly to Amotekun and similar security networks, which will lead to more friction with the federal government as regards the role of the police. Police reforms will not be achieved because reforms cost money and political will, both of which the federal government lacks. IDP camps will not be closed by the May 2021 date set by the governor of Borno State. A fresh wave of civilian casualties will force more people into the camps, raising Nigeria's IDP profile in an already bad league table. More Nigerians will be forced into refugee camps in neighboring countries. Jihadist groups will keep trying to exploit the situation to plant cells. Boko Haram factions and groups operating in the Sahel region, such as Mali, Burkina Faso, and the Niger Republic. The latter groups will be helped by porous borders and weak governance in the region to carry out their activities. The Gulf of Guinea will continue to be a hotbed of pirate attacks on shipping activity. Politics. In 2021, SBM projects that there would be stiffer media regulations. The NBC's decision to find 3 TV stations for the coverage of the EndSARS protests has come hand in hand with calls for the regulation of social media by a growing number of elected officials across the country. With authorities facing significant and sustained censure for their role in the Lekki massacre and other human rights abuses, these calls will only grow. So far, all attempts to put laws on the books that regulate social media have come to naught, but there will continue to be attempts in this direction. We are also fairly certain that the fines dished out to TV stations this year will not be the last. October 2020 saw the country rocked by the EndSARS protest, and the security apparatus was completely unable to keep the peace after curfews were declared. There will be more protests in 2021 that are likely to be triggered by unsustainable food inflation. The states in which these protests will erupt will be under pressure to curb them, perhaps violently, to avoid being accused of bringing embarrassment to President Buhari and the APC. How these incidents are handled when they occur will go a long way to determine the general climate in the country post-2021. Some prominent political figures will be at the receiving end of foreign sanctions in 2021 over their roles in protest and elections. This will have the effect of calming the space a little. After the budget is passed, attention is expected to turn to the constitutional review being led by the Deputy Senate President Ovie Omoegege. While the constitution amendment process will not result in the creation of any new states, there will be increased agitation for new states and for some groups to be reassigned to new regions. These will increase the mutual distrust among the various constituent parts of the country. The tensions between the ACN and CPC components of the APC will become more obvious in 2021, and at some point in the year, the CPC faction, read North, will openly begin to court allies in the Southeast and South-South. In reaction to increased tension between the North and the Southeast and South-South, expect throughout the year increased calls for true federalism from the Southwest. An APC party member will be sworn in as governor in Anambra State to succeed Willie Obiano. Judicial panels of inquiry set up in response to the NSAR's protests will submit their reports, but there will be a slow response to prosecuting indicted officers, if at all any. Over the course of the year, political lines will harden and various camps jockeying for influence at the highest levels of political power will make the effects of cabal politics on policy setting to become more prominent. The Attorney General Abubakar Malami will become an even more central figure in the cabinet and will use his increased standing to send the prosecutorial agencies after perceived opponents. There will be increased interest in voter registration and political participation over the course of 2021, but this increased interest will not translate to any significant increase in participation in any subnational election during the year. We project that there will be more infighting in the Buhari administration. The passing of Chief of Staff Abba Kyari in April appears to have removed the lid on a cauldron of tensions within the administration. One of those tensions was between Attorney General Abubakar Malami and former EFCC acting chairman Ibrahim Magu, which became an all-out war. As 2021 moves along, these tensions will escalate as various players seek to position themselves in a bid to be relevant in a post-Buhari APC. Get ready for the fireworks.